His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind ki, Gaur Premanandi. Are you all part of the same Bhakti Vriksha group here? Yes? Mostly.
Yes. Some new people, this lady Rekha, she's here for the first time.
Okay.
And Gurun Prabhu and his wife, they've been coming to the temple for many, many years, but to our program the first time.
Okay.
Same here. I've been coming to the temple for long, and I have been getting your newsletter forever.
Really?
12 years maybe.
Yeah, the inquiry starts
No.
with, right?
10 years, at least 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so I was so happy to hear that today was the satsang and I could come.
Well, glad you could come.
I'm glad. So
And this is the Friday night Bhakti Vriksha gathering on Thursday. Because some of you, how many here are going to the Sadhu Sangha retreat? Oh, okay. I thought that's maybe why you picked the topic.
I think it was related, but we asked the people in the Bhakti Vriksha what was the like to do. And the general consensus was devotees.
Okay. How close in age are you four? You're much younger. But you three, How close in age are you? 1, 2, 3. How close? What's your age? 8? 8. She's 8 and you're 8. How old are you? 8. Look at that. You go to the same school? No. No. You know each other just from Bhakti, from their gatherings? Well, it's nice to have devotee friends. And look at over here. How old are you? 16. 15.
I'm 14.
14.
13.
15.
13.
13. 15, 14, 13. One more hiding over there. 12, right? Wow. How many?
She's 8.
She says she's 8. I don't know about that one. 6? 8? No.
She is 8?
They're both 8. Are you twins? You sisters? But you're not twins, but you're both 8.
They're friendly sisters.
Huh?
They're friendly sisters. His Krishna's mom's is this one, and Haripriya is this one. Oh, here she is. She's the mom of the other one over there.
Okay, so not friendly sisters, not the other kind.
No.
Wow. Okay. The 4 Kumaris.
You see this?
Okay. Well, this is a nice topic that you all wanted to hear something about. And
Save you
3?
three.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, there's many, of the many ways to speak about it, I was thinking a nice way to speak about this topic is this one here. Srimad Bhagavatam. Kapila Dev's discussions with Devahuti about devotional service. Now, a little background because getting the context of this discussion or any subject matter is nice. This history is taking place at the very early stages of creation, where Brahma has just completed the creation and he's now undergoing the process of populating or filling up the creation, and he does so with the agency of Prajapatis, or that's the Sanskrit term. In English it's progenitors of mankind. It's persons who are given the power to produce varieties of offspring that are good quality, good character, and then further offspring and generations are produced from them. So the one of the earliest from Lord Brahma's own body manifestations is the first Manu. First Manu's name is Swayambhuva Manu. And it's amazing, Swayambhuva Manu and his wife are both produced directly from the body of Lord Brahma in an adult form. Voila. and then they proceed to have offspring. And there's 2 sons and 3 daughters. And focus goes first of all to the eldest of the 3 daughters, Devahuti. Without all the details, several chapters are involved in Devahuti's marriage to Kardama Muni, because it's Satya Yuga, the long duration, thousands of years that they're living together in the forest, undergoing Brahminical austerity together, and eventually Kardama Muni, recognizing the desire of Devahuti to have children, as does he, so arrangements are made. By mystic power, he creates a city that flies around anywhere in the universe. Like Narada can travel anywhere with his Vina. Kardama Muni traveled anywhere with a city. And they're visiting different places, kind of like sightseeing, because this is the early stages of the universe. And after returning to their ashram, 9 daughters are born. Then 1 son is born. The 9 daughters are entrusted as good wives for other sons of Brahma, so that they can do the Prajapati program. They can help fill up the universe with good living entities. And then Kardama Muni, when he reaches, when Kapila reaches a mature stage, a decision is made. Kardama Muni requests permission from his son, who is the personality of Godhead. I'd like to go now. Some arrangement was made at the time prior to their marriage that Kardama Muni agreed that he would accept Swayambhuva's daughter, Swayambhuva Manu's daughter, on the condition that when there was a son of sufficient age to look after his daughter, that he could then return back to the forest and do the primary means of perfection for the 8. The primary means for Satya Yoga is what? Meditation. Meditation. So he returns to meditation with the permission of his son, who he knows to be the personality of Godhead. And having been married for tens of thousands of years, that's a long time to be married. Happily married too. Her husband is now gone. And so she's feeling very strong feelings of separation. And she requests her son, who she knows to be the personality of Godhead, please help me overcome this undue attachment for family life. I know the philosophy. I've been with my good husband for so many years, and so I certainly am fixed in understanding I'm not this body. But inclination of bodily attachment is so strong. My intelligence, just like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, my intelligence is bewildered, my mind is in disarray, I'm very confused. Please help me What should I do in this circumstance to get on the other side of undue attachment to the body and bodily relations? So, this is chapter 25, and in chapter 25, Kapila Dev says, what you need to do is devotional service, because devotional service has the power, so it's a wonderful verse, has the power to dissolve the subtle body, false ego, the material mind. What relief, no more material mind. The spiritual mind that goes to Krishna, but no more material mind that worries about things and laments about things and hankers for things and is filled with so many material conceptions. No more. Bhakti has that power. And bhakti awakens through the association of devotees. So now that's our topic, that's the background. So what I was thinking to do is, there's 8 verses. I learned about this from one of my dear friends and godbrothers, Dravida Prabhu. Has he ever visited out here in the Washington area? Dravida? I haven't heard his name. He's an editor. With all of the Vyasa Puja books, he edits all the Vyasa Puja offerings before they're published. He edits, and he does other editing service for the BBT. And he loves reciting slokas, like since the earliest stages of his Krishna consciousness. So there's 8 verses in chapter 25 that he has said our acharyas call sadhu sangastaka. So sadhu is devotee association, sadhu sangha. Ashtaka is 8 verses. I was thinking just to read them and discuss them as we go along. Okay? In those verses it says the importance of how to identify who is a sadhu, how to associate with a sadhu, and what's the result of associating with a sadhu. Nice. Okay. We're going to start with text 20 from Canto 3, chapter 25, the glories of devotional service. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But the same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation. Now that's speaking specifically of attachment to, but before there's attachment to, then there's some association. Then through association of a qualified person, just like associating with Mahamantra or associating with Krishna directly. And then through that association one may develop some attachment. Attraction, taste, attachment for the holy name. So attachment to one thing brings degradation, attachment to another thing brings elevation. Then how do you know who is a sadhu? This very often quoted famous verse, Jatikshava Karunika Surada Sarvadehinam Ajata Shatravat Shanta Sadhava Sadhubhushanam. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures and all his characteristics are sublime. Very famous verse. It is said that on the importance of devotee association, that's our topic this evening, one develops qualities like those with whom one associates. One develops qualities like those with whom one associates. Prabhupada would like to speak on this topic. Sangat sanjayate kama. Uh-oh. Very fragrant, but it's too heavy. Ah, thank you very much. Sangat, this is from Bhagavad Gita. Sanjaya, Sangat, Sanjayate, Kama, Sanjayate, Kama. One develops desires based upon Sangha. We develop qualities like those with whom we associate. So if we would like to have good quality, associate with those that have good quality. So here's some explanations Prabhupada would give. It's very common in this world, there's some organization, an organization of architects or engineers, and they get together and they have like-minded association. If one wants to become scholarly, one enrolls in a university where there's scholarly people. If you were to go and spend time in places where there's drinking, in bars, you become a drunkard, or become a drinker at least, just by association. And similarly, by association with sadhus, one develops characteristics and qualities like a sadhu. You become sadhu-like, just by association. Of course, association is more than just physical proximity. There's a lot of us sitting close together here. We're not just going to take on qualities because we're seated on a cushion next to somebody else. But association means more than just where you're physically seated. It's the activities and exchanges between individuals. And through that, qualities develop. And most outstanding, that's going back to the beginning of the chapter, is the quality, the characteristic of being devoted to the Supreme Lord. So the question again, for those who came in a little late, that Devahuti is asked is how to overcome undue or excessive attachment to the body and bodily relations, family members, in her case, her husband who has departed. And, he's an awesome person in many ways. He's a very, 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 very special person. And naturally she's feeling some separation. But too much, so much so she's just bewildered. Can't think straight. So the characteristics of the devotee are identified. And then what does such a person do? Attachment to is recommended, the qualities and characteristics of. And then what does that person do? Such a sadhu engages in Mayi Chananya Yoge Bhavena Bhaktim Kurvanti Te Dridham Matkrite Chakta Karmanas Chakta Svajana Bandhava. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Now, Doesn't mean such a person has to be a sannyasi. It means the undue attachment to. Then she's asking how to overcome undue attachment to by associating with those that are free from undue attachment. That's how. Engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with the thoughts of my pastimes and activities. O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. Then comes, what does that association look like? In the association, this is satam prasangan mamavirya samvidho bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha tajjoshanad ashafa varga vartmani shradharatir bhaktir anukramishati. Very famous verse. This is what you do when you find such a person and become attached to such a person. Here's what it looks like. In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Now everything sounded pretty good until the end. How does the devotional service, what are we doing now? Are we doing devotional service or not? And we're doing devotional service, but we're doing devotional service in the practice stage, and then the spontaneous stage, and then the love of God stage. So it's speaking, the mature stage. Devotional service in the mature stage is reached when this is achieved. Similar, Katayanta Shamam Nityam Tushyanti Cha Ramanti Cha from Bhagavad Gita. Association of devotees, because sadhu, in one sense, it means the elevated souls. The elevated Vaishnavas are sadhu. In a more broad and general sense, a sadhu means a devotee. Sadhu is one who's attached to sat, who's engaged in activities of sat, of that which is eternal. That's a devotee, or sura as opposed to asura, the divine and the demoniac. The divine are those that are accepting as the goal of life to please the personality of Godhead and are striving. So even in the sadhana stage, that's also sadhu. Sadhu eva samantavya. Right? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Now, one should consider someone, he considers someone to be sadhu who is in this ananya bhakti position. It's an important phrase, it's a repeated phrase in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam, where at least in the cultivation of, what to speak of otherwise in the maturing stages of bhakti, that one's life is fully immersed in this one thing. The activities in relation to Krishna or Vishnu. Nate vidu svartakatim hi Vishnu. Prahlad Maharaj saying to his father, Hiranyakashipu, foolish persons too much attached to the body are like that because they don't know what the goal of life is. They can't go beyond the temporary. And so sadhu association or devotee association helps one go beyond the bodily conception. It helps one go beyond the stage of ignorance of our true identity, our spiritual identity. That's the merit or the purpose of having our Bhakti Vriksha group coming together, having kirtan in the beginning, having Naish Prasadam in the end, and in between, topics that are bringing our attention towards Sat and drawing our attention away from simply thinking Asat is everything. The cares and the worries, where we're very, 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 very busy managing the temporary. So much so that there's no time to think about who I really am and the eternal destination of the soul and how to live one's life accordingly. There's no time for it because we're too busy with the temporary. The devotee association is something so valuable and so very powerful. It has the capacity to awaken bhakti. Those who are carrying bhakti, just by their association, can awaken bhakti. And when bhakti awakens, ignorance is dissipated and eventually dispelled. Nice. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojataha Dandiyati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. Knowledge awakens and arises, and thus ignorance is dispelled, and thus the suffering that's due to ignorance is dispelled just by bhakti. Just by association of devotees awakens bhakti that does all those nice things. The potential is there. Now we have to align. We have to do several things. We have to align our intention, our heart, and our mind, and our activity in a consistent manner towards that objective, towards that goal. And we're out of alignment, and we're sometimes really bent out of shape, going, into an unpleasant zone, unpleasant space. But if we keep the association of devotees, then it can keep us back on track with, along with our determination. So that's what's being said here, that the qualification of a devotee and the proper activities with the devotees strengthens one's determination to stay on the bhakti path and reach the bhakti goal. These wonderful qualifications that the sadhus, the elevated sadhus with whom we may have the opportunity to associate have, and we can get there too in that association. Back to the question at the beginning of the chapter. Devahuti wants to know how to overcome this undue attachment to the body and bodily conception of life and all the attachments that go along with it. She says, I know this is due to Maya, but it's your Maya. You sanctioned that it could be covering me, so can you remove that Maya? That's your Maya. And he's giving the means. He's removing, but there's something she has to do. It's not just presto. Touch Devahuti's head with a magic wand and Maya's gone. There's something that Devahuti has to do. Something that we have to do. Hear, and then act according to the wisdom, the knowledge that we're hearing. Our read it again. It's a nice, important verse. In the association of pure devotees, discussions of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. Bhavanti Ritkarana Rasayana Kata. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. It's like successive stages of bhakti, just as Rupa Goswami has given us. The 9 steps or stages of bhakti. Next. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification both in this world and in the next, and by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. Semicolon. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. Now there's other processes besides the bhakti process where one may try to control the mind. And they may be successful for some period of time. The Bhagavatam describes you can rise to a high position and recognize there's higher consciousness available. But because the mind is influenced by the modes of nature, again, one is pulled down by the modes of nature influencing the mind. Probably every one of us here have experienced that. And then in one college program, a student came saying, I really like meditation. I didn't ask him what kind. I really like meditation. It's allowing me to experience, there's much higher consciousness, but I can't stay there. So what can I do to stay there? And there were 3 students that didn't know each other. One said, I found something online. It only costs $30, and you do this, and you can stay there. Oh yeah, what's the thing? It's not some.
Someone's parked their car right at the entrance and it can get cold. So I don't know who it is. You just.
Do you have a way of identifying which car?
Someone actually gray color car. Yeah, it will definitely get cold. Somebody will.
Is the Honda, which
It's a Honda Civic.
This is the gray color, which is opposite side, not where typically all the cars are. It's on the other side.
It's towards the houses or is it towards the
It's towards the houses.
It's on the wrong side.
You got a lot of people in your Bhakti Vriksha group. They just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. Okay. Where these verses began was the negative, and then in contrast the positive. The negative is attachment to material, covers consciousness. That's the Maya that Devahuti was speaking about in the beginning. But it's not that attachment altogether is to be given up. Attachment to the material meaning forgetfulness of the personality of Godhead. That attachment to the temporary, the forgetfulness of the personality of Godhead is to be given up. But the flip side is attachment to sadhu. It has just the opposite effect. So now he's taking Devahuti down the path of who is a sadhu, how to associate with a sadhu, what the activities in that association look like, what happens to one's internal consciousness progressively, step by step, in the course of that association. And then finally, the stage of perfection, pure devotional service. It's not like snap your fingers and you're there at the end of the road. But the procedure and everything in a short number of verses, the bhakti process is described. Ignorance is dispelled. Attachment to the temporary. Asat, trishna, thirst for the impermanent. The bhakti process in the association of sadhus rightly performed has the potential of relieving that contamination, that distraction, the exactly what she is speaking about, the undue material affection. There's a very nice section of Queen Kunti's prayers where she speaks about please take away the attachment I have for the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. And Vishwanath reasons this way. How is it possible? Krishna is attached to his devotees. How Queen Kunti isn't saying, I don't want to be attached to your devotees. That means I don't want to be attached to Krishna. That's not possible. Affection, Prabhupada's words, affection is natural. You're not alive. You're dead stone if you don't have affection. So affection is natural. Now where is it to be reposed? How is it to be directed? What is the objective? Prabhupada's word. What is the objective? Bhakti says, or teaches us, that the objective is Krishna is to be pleased. And an indication of how Krishna is being pleased is the sadhu is being pleased. How do we know? What Krishna is too far away. What do we know? What's pleasing to Krishna, not pleasing to Krishna? We know through his words, but then different people interpret his words in different ways. So, how are we to know? Like John Lennon asking Prabhupada over and over and over and over and over, I accept, what makes your Bhagavad Gita the best one to read? There's so many Bhagavad Gitas out there. Why should I read yours? It was, a little challenging. And Prabhupada gave different explanation. Finally, the one that I like the most is he said, if you can find somebody that their whole life is simply Krishna, they work for Krishna, they think of Krishna, they live for Krishna. Their life is Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. That person is going to know Krishna. And that person is the person whose Bhagavad Gita you should read. Because it's Krishna's words, and how are you going to know what Krishna's words are, how to understand them properly without the intimate association of Krishna? Of course, that is made possible through sadhu sangha. Through association with those who are dear to Krishna, you become dear to Krishna. We're almost done with the 8 verses. We have one more to go. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge in renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service to the Supreme Personality Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life. For I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth. Nice, huh? So, there's one other very often quoted reference, Prabhupada often quoted, the importance of devotee association. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Let's do it again. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Sadhu Sangha, Lava Matra, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. The scriptures say the association of devotees is so important that even a moment's association, all perfection can come. Maybe some of you have had the opportunity to hear the Prabhupada memories, recordings, and many of them, not all of them, but many of them speak about being with Prabhupada, even, some of the first times, and just feeling he looked right through me, and he knew exactly where I was at, and, the jig's up. I can't conceal or hide my impurity anymore. Prabhupada knew everything. One devotee, I won't name the name of the devotee, but a sannyasi, a guru, said his first meeting with Prabhupada was in receiving prasadam. It was after a Bhagavatam class. He heard the Prabhupada speak for the first time, and then along with other devotees he came to receive a prasadam from Prabhupada's hand. And as he was standing in line, his heart started beating, and the power of a qualified devotee like Srila Prabhupada, it's incredible. My life was like that. I've told the stories too many times, so I won't do the whole thing. But just hearing kirtan as a college student, I didn't know who Prabhupada was. I didn't know nothing about nothing. Passing through the student union one day, going to see a friend, and there was a crowd of people outside one of the assembly halls. So I went inside to see what's going on. There was Prabhupada. I heard kirtan, and my life changed. I didn't understand it at the time, but Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy, just by association. It's very, very powerful. We have to take it in the correct way. We have to carefully guard against offense. We have to try to hear and then apply the things that we hear. The mood of service unto such a person is important. But it's all perfection can come. Everything auspicious can come, and everything inauspicious can be driven away. And it leads to things that we have to do, but it leads to the path of devotional service that, followed properly, brings us to perfection. Okay, so any discussion? Some of you wanted this topic, enough of you that we're speaking about it, so let's see if there's some further thoughts. Yes?
Well, I just wanted to know in general, as Sadhu Sangha is so powerful, though some people get in touch with the sadhus, this powerful association also, for a little while or for a medium period of time also, still they won't be able to have taste for devotion and activities. I mean, many people come into work workshops and
Yeah.
things will come.
So that's a statement. What's the question?
Like why?
Why?
Does that happen? There can be many reasons, but why general people?
There's lots of reasons. But one of them is attachment. Attachment to asat. We're attached to the sources of our misery. We're not attached to the misery. We're attached to the sources of our misery. You heard that question this morning. Parameshwari was taking care of a 5-year-old for the day. And this was, I think, just yesterday. Day before yesterday or day before yesterday. Anyway, whatever it was. Yesterday? Okay. So, when his mother left, he was crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And then, so finally he calmed down and he was playing with his little electronic device and got absorbed. His crying stopped. Then something happened. I forget exactly how she described what happened, but he went over to the bookshelf and saw a book and saw something about chanting. So she had him chant 5 times, and he started feeling very happy and smiling and smiling and smiling. And she said, "Oh, you're smiling so much." Then he wanted to get rid of the smile and said, "I'm smiling too much. I like the other face." We're creatures of habit. We're attached to things being a certain way. We're averse to, although there's always change, we're averse to change. We're fearful. It's a whole thing of our conditioned consciousness. So it generally is a gradual process. And someone may come forward because of a problem, and when the problem reduces, the impetus to come forward slackens, and then one's submission diminishes, and one can go here and go there, just whatever it is. We're distracted so much, attached to the temporary. So it's a gradual process. We need to keep up good association on a regular basis, or sustained over time. And have faith in the process. That's so we can go further. Yes?
What happens if a person associates with a devotee who is, or devotees who are not yet on
That's good.
Can that person ever become a devotee?
Of course. Why not? Because Krishna's mercy comes unlimitedly, and starting with, read Srila Prabhupada's books regularly, and we're getting that association. We're getting the association of the holy name. We're getting the association of the deity form of the Lord. We're in contact with transcendence at once. From the very, very beginning, however.
Also, the undue attachment to material things get cut by that association.
By bhakti. Yes. Well, it's not exactly by that association, by the bhakti process. As Krishna will guide us to whatever it is that we need to go further. There's no restriction from his side. It's an important understanding, an important kind of faith, that whatever it is that is Yogakshema Vahamyaham, Krishna will provide whatever we need. Anything else? Yes.
Like Krishnamataji asked, my question is how to reciprocate or how to deal with devotee association. Like medium, like somebody just starting, and somebody very, very high level, but we don't know like how to get the benefit of a devotee is having elevated level or very good realizations. Like you shared your experience, like when Prabhupada was doing the kirtan, even somebody going by that road gets some benefit.
Yes.
But like depending upon our karma, just for my case I can say, sometimes like during devotee association, sometimes discussing something, I could see some mistake on the other persons. That is not good.
Their mistake or you're seeing?
Yeah.
Or both?
Yeah.
Both.
So, but at the same time, 95% or 99% are good. But we are, those started as a devotee, but we are carrying our karma, trying to nullify those things, but it's hard. So how to deal with those situations?
Once. A little complicated. Can you break it down one at a time?
How to deal with the devotee associations in order to get benefit?
Okay. So I'm looking at someone who's very elevated devotee, and I'd like to know what's the best way to associate with that person who's a very elevated devotee. That's your question? That's not your question.
Yeah.
That yes or no?
Yes, but with tradition something like elevated devotees, even if somebody I don't know what the level, but I want to associate, either I can give some benefit or I can get some benefit. So
Well, you don't give some benefit. You give some service, and part of the service starts with hearing. Hearing is service. You attend, hear attentively as that person is speaking and explaining and conducting, and you observe. You learn from that elevated person, and then you apply it. What you've understood, you apply it. That's also service. Isn't it?
yeah. most of them we are hearing some Maharaj lecture or going somewhere. It would be better if you could get some prior knowledge so that it will relate. But
We have to start somewhere.
yeah, so,
Start with something. And start if you I'm not you. If you were really clear with your question, it might make it easier for me to respond, because I'm not really clear what you're asking. Bhayahari, do you understand what she's asking?
I can try, Maharaj. I think what she's asking is, how do you associate with different grades of devotees? More advanced, not so advanced, kind of thing.
That's what you're asking?
yeah, how to deal.
How to deal?
No matter the level, like maybe.
How to associate? How to deal with persons in different levels of spiritual advancement. That's your question.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an easy question.
But it has some sub-branch that's
Well, there's diversity. You can't. You give me a break. What you're asking, it sounds like what you're if Bhayahari got it. Yes, there's divisions. Let's say beginning, intermediate, advanced, or Kanishta, Madhyama, or Uttama. You know those terms? So, in the Gaudiya Mat, they have Kanishta, Kanishta, Madhya, Kanishta, Uttama, Kanishta. Kanishta, Madhya, Madhya, Madhyama, Uttama, Madhyama. Kanishta, Uttama, Madhyama, Uttama, Uttama, Uttama. And then further. So there's divisions. It gets like really complicated. It so much depends upon you and the circumstance and the person. So how to depends on you and the circumstance and the person. But the general broad stroke is, for those that are innocent, it's stated in Scripture many ways, many places. Give association, give kindness to those that are less advanced, devotees. Make friendship with those that are peers, and those that are more advanced, you hear from and render service to. And if there's some flaw, you trust the bhakti process will take care of the flaw, or the impurity, or the inconsistency, or something. I don't need to be the monitor of that. Krishna is. And so my attention goes to giving, exchanging on a peer, discussing topics of Krishna together with peers and realizations with those that are peers, and sharing things that we've read and understood, and opportunities for service, and expanding Krishna consciousness, and taking care of devotees nicely, and having a nice festival for the deity or something. We do those things with peers. And those that are advanced, we inquire from and hear submissively. And there's gradations of those. We don't focus on the flaw, we focus on the Krishna bhakti. Trusting that Krishna will take care of everything, not me. All right? Okay. How are we doing? Are we... Oh, something, go back here, yes.
Maharaj, like in today's world, like in the association, like it's very common that we can't be with the devotees.
We can't be with devotees.
We do it all the time, right?
Oh, we can't be with devotees all the time.
We are at work.
Yeah, we have with all kinds of people we're with,
Right.
yeah.
So how to be stable in your mind to be on the faith and
Be Krishna's servant in all circumstances. That doesn't change. You can serve, like her question, you can serve in different ways, but you're serving Krishna in whatever the situation is. I could elaborate, but you can, depending, you serve Krishna. And you're praying, your spirit is, I wish to be rendering service that's favorable to Krishna, pleasing to Krishna. And you may not know how to do that, but you're praying like that. That's the consciousness you're carrying. Yes.
In regards to Prabhuji's question, how do we dovetail that with, let's say, a typical teenager?
Typical teenager. I was going to ask our teenagers if they have something that they want to ask, but now we got.
The ones who go to regular public school and
Are an association of people that do all the kinds of other things. So you have. It's a. Can you narrow it down a little bit? It's very broad.
Just that the question that he asked, how would you apply that to a teenager? In regards to them associating with their school friends and
Okay, I think I got it.
and also with electronics and something like that.
Okay.
Because there's a
Well, best is from tender age of childhood. There it begins, but it doesn't always happen that way because sometimes families start Krishna consciousness after that. But if there's an understanding, to the degree that there's an understanding of why, then it's easy to encourage the what and the how. Let's say eating. I had this really nice experience in Palatine. One mother is really in the past year has just done this fantastic job of reaching out to young people. So there were these two different programs. It was all just young people and young people. So it was just young people. It was like, 30 of them. And the parents were back there. And it was all interaction with the young people. And one of the questions was, just for example, how many of you take lunch from home to be when you go to public school? Almost all of them raised their hand. And then how many of you get teased about the food that you eat when you bring your lunch from home? And 80% raised their hand of those that bring their lunch. So now how do you deal with that? It's like peer pressure. Well, if you know why, then it's not a problem. Although acceptance, a young person being accepted by peers is really important for young people. However, if you're really clear about your values, like why we eat the food that we eat in our home, not just because, mom says or it's what we do, so therefore I do it, I don't really know why. But if you really know why, then you can say, the opposite, turn it around the other way. You guys don't know what you're missing out on. And then there's not, if there's not confrontational mood from the young person to their peer group, but, there's clarity, then it's not yielding to the pressure to conform. And then, then it's dress, style, and all the other things that, without going through the long list. It's a long list. But why? And, depending upon the individual, be an individual. I shared with them, this group, I know some place where there's a young girl, and she started wearing 2 different colored socks. And when her mother pointed out, I asked why. She said, because when you get a hole in one sock, you don't throw away the sock, you just wear another sock. And I said, what happens when you go like that at school? She said, all the kids are wearing 2 different colored socks now. It started a fad at school. Because it's cool, if you're an individual and you express your individuality, you're not afraid, intimidated by what other people, you can wear 2 colored socks. And it's cool. So and in today's, amongst youth today, asserting your individuality, that's cool. You know, put a piece of metal over here, or put a tattoo over there, or, you know, wear 2 colored socks, or, you know, be an individual. So be an individual. You know, be clear who you are, and, you know, encourage. Be not like just for the sake of being like everybody else, and supposedly that's being an individual, but who are you? And be who you are, and be, you know, be happy to be proud and courageous, and you have our full support. And then, you know, bring some prasadam every Tuesday or every Wednesday and pass it out to your friends, and they'll go, wow, we're really, you know, what do you got this week? They can understand that it's really good. They're missing out. What to speak of the spiritual dimension of prasadam, as opposed to something that's not prasadam. But if the young person is thoughtful, just even with this food, the consciousness of the person who's cooking is transferred in the process of cooking. So when eating foods that are cooked by those that are not in clean consciousness, you're eating that consciousness. You're ingesting that consciousness by the act of eating. So I like consciousness prepared food. I like to decide whether it's offered to Krishna or blessed or something. And if someone's character is good, and they have that principle, it's cool. Now, electronics, that's a whole other thing. This could be, a parenting class could go on all night. I want to see if our teenagers here have something, not specifically responsive to this, but anything that you'd like to hear some discussion about? Yes.
I was wondering, with the Devotee Association, how are we able to get past the 3 modes of the material nature, like the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, and the mode of goodness? How are we able to get through that through Devotee Association?
Fantastic question. Can I ask you a question? Have you been thinking about this? Is it like something you've been contemplating? Fantastic question. Thank you. Well, it's not exactly, kind of like a question that was raised over here. It's not just the devotee association, but the bhakti process. Because the devotee association we may have available to us may be devotees like us, devotees, but not, a little mixed. Something for Krishna and something over there too. They're not yet fully matured. So to go beyond the modes of nature, including the mode of goodness, it requires clarity about the object of devotion. That's Krishna. Like let's just take chanting. Do you chant every day? Okay. Do you chant sometimes? Okay. You like kirtan, right? Yeah, kirtan. So, when you're in kirtan, you can be distracted or you could be absorbed. And sometimes distracted, sometimes more tuned into the musicality, and sometimes it's just the name and absorbed in the name. That's like the greatest happiness, but it's not always like that. So it's not just the persons who you're in kirtan with, but it's your absorption in the name. And that takes like something inside you that I want that shelter. The very fact that you're asking this question says to me, I want that shelter. I'm not there yet. You wouldn't ask that question if it wasn't, you wanted to be there. So it's just stay with that desire in the bhakti process and select as closely associate with those that want to go there too, whether they're there or not, or those that want to go there, not just those that wear a sari and tilak, but that want to go there. And it doesn't have to be, you have your friends, and friends are needed, but close relationships with those that they're on that track, they're on that trajectory. And then you apply yourself to the activities of bhakti with sincerity as much as you can. And you exercise your bhakti muscle to get stronger. That Krishna should be pleased, because that's how it will happen. Krishna should be pleased. Then the modes of nature can fade. The grip that they have can be removed. It takes time because we're habituated to being in the modes. I mean, sometimes you like this one more than that one. Good. Another question? Just checking. What about our 8-year-olds? Do our 8-year-olds have a question? You have a question? You have anything you'd like to hear some discussion about? You're having too much fun. Okay. Okay. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, in life we interact with different kinds of people, just like he was describing.
We have different experiences. Some are good, some are not so good. So, how to have those experiences as good learnings for our Krishna?
Well, it's just go to the default position, or the ground position. My life is meant for pleasing Krishna. My existence, not just this particular time around. The soul is for pleasing Krishna. You start there, and you'll learn so many things that you won't learn otherwise. What's the best way to be of service to Krishna, pleasing to Krishna in this circumstance? Okay? Then you discuss with others who are experienced devotees, and they'll help you understand. Okay, I think we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. I had two things before everyone gets restless. In this backpack here, I have some Mahaprasadam from Kishore Kishori. I'm going to walk around and give out some Mahaprasadam. And the second thing is, those that do not yet have a video recording, a flash drive recording of visits to Dwaraka and Ayodhya, I have them here. I can put one or both in your hand if you just let me know. There's a donation involved and we can discuss, and if you don't have a donation, you can take anyway and give something to Bhayahari later. Okay? Thank you. Prashadam, right?